One Piece chapter 981 is out, and in light of everything that's going on, I think it's come at a perfect time. And I don't know, spoiler alert, we have no break next week, which is a welcomed sight. I think this is something we may take for granted at times, just how much One Piece takes our mind off of what's going on in the world. And while we don't want to be unaware of what's going on, sometimes different outlets like this, it's helpful and it can bring our mind some peace in these stressful times. So that made me very happy to see that One Piece will be back next week. But without further ado, let's get into it in regards to One Piece chapter 981. So the chapter is called Joining the Fight. For the most part, we pick up right where we left off with Kid and Apoo. And for these two, it makes sense that their confrontation has lasted, about 2 chapters because it's been built up for so long. I expected it to be a bit more like a full out fight, but in the middle of war, we can't expect that, right? That was an unrealistic expectation. But again, you didn't know exactly when they would meet and how they would meet. But with them meeting in the war, I think this is fine. Again, it's reiterating the whole theme of Wano, or one of the themes I would say, in regards to the worst generation and them establishing themselves, I suppose, as real threats outside of just hearsay. It's kind of dispelling some of the notions about them, whereas they were strong and they were notorious, but no one actually thought, other than Blackbeard, that the worst generation was really capable of doing what they're doing right now. So I think this is going to continue, where we're going to get mention of the worst generation time and time again throughout the arc, and more than likely post Wano, the worst generation will probably have control of the seas, meaning there'll be more than one member of the worst generation that has insane acclaim and can challenge the Yonko, or being regarded as one of the Yonko. Of course, Blackbeard currently is a Yonko, he's a part of the worst generation. Luffy as well is regarded a Yonko by Big News, but I think other people could get to that level in regards to being members that can compete with the Yonko. The downward spiral continues with Queen, whereas he keeps thinking back to Babanuki when he told him everything was okay, and that was because Babanuki, he was influenced by Tama. But Queen is now starting to freak out. Like when he heard Luffy had escaped, he's like, all right, this is annoying. But now Kid has escaped as well. He's like, okay, something is really wrong in Udon. Everything is not okay. In regards to Apoo and Kid, he's wrapping up the confrontation, and he's talking about the telltale signs of Apoo being a traitor, as far as being proactive about joining the alliance. And I'm not really sure about that one, because Apoo, he took out some of Kid's men. He did eventually join, but he came when Killer asked them to. But I'm not sure if proactive is the correct word, because he made it a bit difficult. However, this is indicative of mindset and mentality in regards to Kid and Apoo. And as I mentioned before, Luffy and Kid, they're the 2 leaders of the generation, excluding Blackbeard, of course. When I say that, I'm always excluding Blackbeard because his goes beyond saying. His goes without saying. He is the leader of the worst generation. He is currently a Yonko, first to be a Yonko, and truly acknowledged and recognized by everyone as a Yonko. So mentality wise, I think sometimes accomplishing something, believing that you can, is half the job. So for Kid and Luffy, as shown pre-time skip, they truly believe that they can find the One Piece. And to find the One Piece, the Emperors, while you don't necessarily have to crush them, it's a stepping stone, right? Because they have the poneglyphs, etc. It's another display of the mentality that exists within the worst generation. Everyone doesn't really think the same. Everyone doesn't really believe they can. They're notorious, they're strong, but at the end of the day, they view the Yonko as immovable objects, not stepping stones towards their dream, like Kid and Luffy do. Kid and Luffy, the 2 leaders, they haven't joined anyone. Of course, Kid has his Apoo and Hawkins alliance to take down Kaido, and Luffy had the Law Alliance, but for the most part, they were by themselves. They weren't going under anyone. They would work with people, but they were not going to go under anyone. Apoo, Hawkins, Capone, X-Drake, they all have their own goals, and Capone, he had a plan to take down Big Mom. However, going under these people just shows where they are mentally, right? Where they feel like we have a plan to take them out, but we have to just follow their orders and become minions until we get there. That is not Kid and Luffy's mentality. So I think that's what Oda is trying to highlight here, that Kid and Apoo, they just view things differently. And Apoo got in another hit on Kid, and Apoo so far has hit Luffy, Kid, Zoro, and this makes sense because he's a member of the worst generation. People want to power scale Kid calling Apoo trash, and personally, I don't think that has anything to do with power scaling. For the most part, that is him talking about the mentality of Apoo, where Apoo feels like he cannot, or they cannot, overcome the Yonko. And for Kid, with all that he's been through, he absolutely believes that he can take out one of the Yonko, or all of the Yonko. So for Kid, with that mentality, hearing Apoo saying those things, to him it's trash. So I really love that the Viz kept that in, because in the scans it said garbage, and they just flat out just said trash. I think trash works so well here, because they go about things in a completely different way. We were introduced to one of the numbers, the 8th one, I'm assuming. So like everyone, I would think that once you get higher on the numbers, where you get to 3, 2, and 1, they would be the strongest ones. But again, they're still on a spectrum for me, because relative to the commanders and the flying 6, they should be weaker. So there's only so much stronger they can get. Of course, they could be overlap, for sure, but I'm not expecting too much from the numbers. However, what they did in the chapter was impressive. They took out 2 men with 1 blow, and Killer just had to dodge out the way. So they will be a nuisance, but overall, not too worried about the numbers. I like also in this chapter how Kid is confronting Apoo about the alliance and how it went sour and how Apoo pretty much set him up. But on the other hand, in this chapter, Kid was about to get shot and Luffy protected him. So I know Kid said he will never trust anyone again, but Oda is slowly but surely using Luffy and that rapport to dispel some of that, which I'm not sure how I feel about it, because for Kid, I enjoyed the independent mentality, the person that doesn't want to work with anyone, the person that doesn't really like anyone, challenging everyone, where I don't think he's going to change that much, but there may be some newfound respect for Luffy and alliances in general, whereas Apoo is saying alliances don't have happy endings, but so far, Luffy and Law, so good. So while I'm not sure where that's going, I did enjoy it. I liked it a lot, actually. This dynamic between Luffy, Zoro, and Kid is going to be interesting, and Killer, of course, is in there, because these three, based on consensus, based on discussion, are the people we expect to have the most impact on this war. With Zoro being a swordsman, we're in Wano, Kid being on Luffy's level or Luffy's main rival in the supernova, or worst generation, how you want to say it, excluding Blackbeard. So I'm not sure if this dynamic is going to continue, but this scene was great, where Luffy talks about Kid causing a scene, Zoro countering Luffy about him saying anything, and then Kid kind of going at Roronoa, which I was surprised that he knew his name. I mean, it makes sense, right? But it was just funny to see. Like, this dynamic could be interesting. And Killer in the background, Afafa, just saying that they're all idiots, which is great. And the Killer narrative, the Killer story, something I'll talk about one day in regards to where he came from to where he is now, trying to justify just the difference in the mentality of Killer, or how we perceived Killer up to now, because Killer seemingly, he's all right, and he's the one that's still strategically telling everyone what to do. And this goes back to Apoo with his devil fruit, where he's telling them to cover their ears. And for Apoo's devil fruit, if you're not in the range of hearing it, it would not affect you. However, if you hear it, there's no avoiding it. The funny part about this, right, that I'm not sure a lot of people caught, is that Killer telling them to cover their ears, right, then went directly into the explanation. So while he's talking, their ears are still covered. So I'm not sure how much of that they actually heard. Like, these three are going to be comedy gold for the rest of Wano. I guarantee it. We did get some insight though with Killer and the reason why he ate the smile. For the most part, it was to save his captain. Orochi gave him the smile, it turned him into a pleasure, but I suppose what we expected was not what it is. Of course, he became the assassin for Orochi. However, it was stated that this was the only way he could save his captain. So still a weird thing. I hope he gets some more on that, but for Killer and his thoughts, that's what led him to where he is now. Someone had mentioned it would be cool if Killer has some underlying ability that we don't know about yet, or he hasn't truly found out yet. I think it would be interesting, but I doubt it. I doubt that's what's going to happen here. I think he's truly a pleasure that will be healed by the end of Wano, but for right now, we just have to deal with it. And again, Kid, Zoro, and Luffy, they're continuing their massacre in which Kid gets upset at the people calling Killer a pleasure, and he's still going crazy with his, punk rock, punk Gibson, all those attacks. And Luffy's telling Kid to stop causing a scene after what he did, where he was the initial person to kind of cause the scene. And in the midst of that, Who's Who's looking at them. So Who's Who sees that they've escaped from Udon, right? And for the most part, there's a lot going on here, because Who's Who, based on the people that are supporting him now, people are saying they could be his former crewmates, who are now just his minions on Kaido's crew. But I wonder if this is any indication of Who's Who's devil fruit, where it seems to be cats, like felines. So maybe as a cat type zone, not literally a cat type zone, but maybe in the cat family, a saber-tooth, a lion, something of that nature. But even deeper than that, the dialogue here basically tells me that this is personal for Who's Who. The fact that there are 3 members of the worst generation down there, and for Who's Who, he feels like he would gain more from capturing Yamato. It tells me that he is so affixed on his goal to fight Queen that it doesn't matter if Luffy, the perceived 5th Yonko, is down there, which I'm not sure if he knows about because of the news going in and out of Wano. However, to him, nothing trumps capturing Yamato, especially before Sasaki. So that continues the narrative about Sasaki and Who's Who in regards to them being the 2 guys that really want the 1v1s versus the commanders. But the dialogue here is important because Who's Who says, I've heard enough out of Queen. He wants to kill someone. Well, so do I. And we see Queen in the background while Who's Who is talking. He wants to kill Queen. I think it's pretty obvious that they have issues with each other. I'm not sure if Queen was the one to subdue Who's Who or defeat his crew. So at this point, Who's Who wants a personal fight with Queen to avenge himself and his crewmates. But I think it's pretty damn clear the person Who's Who wants. And the conflict that's going on right now is between Who's Who and Queen. Let me know what you guys guys think? So the Big Mom pirates still are not in Onigashima. I'm really not sure why it was taking so long, but based on the chapters say that they've just got in touch. And the Big Mom pirates did say that they would remain at the bottom of the waterfall until, you know, they'd find a better way to get up, or they just stay there because they're worried about King. They really stayed there the entire time until someone told them, yo, everything's okay. And there's an alliance happening, so you guys can come to Onigashima now. But before that, we see that some of the forces, they're going to do a pincer attack on Kaido, going to blend in and wait till, you know, the war actually starts out, and therefore counterattack Kaido and Orochi. Good to see war strategy being used. I mentioned Kingdom in my previous discussion about it, but that's really cool to see in One Piece. We saw a bit of it at Marineford as well, like war tactics. So it makes sense that Oda brings that back in this, you know, large scale war that we have in Onigashima. The Pleasure Hall, which belongs to Black Maria of the Tobiropo. When I initially saw this, I thought it was going to be a gag for Sanji and him not being able to hit women, and I was going to be annoyed by that because, you know, while I don't disagree with Sanji's Nindo of not hitting women, I don't like when it's to the detriment of the narrative, or more so to the mission. So I was hoping that he didn't run into Black Maria so that we had that issue again. However, while I feel like this could have been avoided, or I really didn't care for it as much, the gag here, it was beneficial because it basically took care of us going through and searching this entire establishment in a few pages with Sanji's gag. So Sanji being gloomy and there's no people being in the pleasure district or the pleasure quarter, we can just move forward. One of the more hilarious theories that I heard was that Sanji actually saw Big Mom naked, and that's the reason why he was reacting the way he is. I don't think so. I don't think that's what happened at all. So for Sanji not seeing women and the expectation of the Pleasure Hall, it disappointed him, right? It disappointed him. The Chopper and Big Mom moment is hilarious, right? Like Big Mom, she's still getting ready. She opens the window and Chopper's right there. So now the theories are going around about Chopper and Big Mom. Does she recognize Chopper? What's going to happen here? Is Chopper going to be one of the animals that Big Mom thinks she could collect? It could be that Big Mom and her memories are still jumbled. Like she just got hit, you know, a few days ago. Her memories could still be all over the place, and Chopper could be viewed as an ally to Big Mom right now. She doesn't have to be in her amnesia state, but her memories could be a bit jumbled. But that moment was hilarious. We get to one of the best moments in the chapter in which they're ready to climb the waterfall and they're talking smack about King, or, well, not talking smack. Pedo is saying that King hasn't seen the last of them. And I think just the dialogue again just shows how these people feel about not only the Big Mom pirates, but about Big Mom. Smoothie is loyal. I'm not sure if it's to a fault, but she is extremely loyal. She was the one talking about Big Mom and say, yo, Big Mom is not dead yet. Let's stop talking about who would succeed her. Again, in this chapter, she's saying Mama decided, we follow. That's it. Where for the others, they're taking it more personally about the Straw Hats coming into Whole Cake Island and sullying their reputation. Flampe's comment was weird, so I'm not even going to address it. It's just weird. So Pedo's going up the waterfall and he says, yo, this is where King was waiting, so we need to be aware, right? And here comes Marco. Marco the Phoenix comes and knocks down the ship once again, and this is Marco's first named attack. So at some point, I'm going to compare Marco and King in regards to, you know, who should be perceived as stronger. But for right now, it's interesting that Oda used this moment for two Birdzoans who, you know, seemingly Flame is a part of their devil fruits, knocked over the ship. It's funny and it's clever. But the dialogue here is really important. The dialogue that Marco says, something that we can really hone in on. One is about the story of the Big Mom pirates and the Beast pirates allying, which could have been the deciding factor as to Marco coming to Wano, saying, well, he's going after Kaido. I'm sorry, I can't help you. But now with Big Mom and Kaido allying, okay, they may need me. So maybe that's the reason why he went. But also Marco saying the next time you show up, the times may have moved on a bit more than before, which I'm like, yo, how long is it going to take them to get back up this waterfall? Because Marco's essentially saying, yo, the era may be different once you guys get back up here. Telling me or insinuating that the Big Mom pirates could miss the entire war? Like, that would be insane. Like if the Big Mom pirates actually missed the entire war, like Smoothie, Daifuku, all of them, they get to Onigashima, they get to Wano, and they don't do anything, but get knocked off the waterfall twice. I'm not sure how I would feel about that, but that's actually crazy to think about. In the midst of this, we also see that Nekomamushi is back and Izo. So two of the Whitebeard pirates are here. Izo was a definite. Even if Marco didn't come, I knew Izo was definitely going to show up. I mean, I've always been on the side of Marco coming to Wano, but this is great. It's really important that Marco is here right now because there's a lot that I think Marco has to somehow redeem and some honor to be gained and some honor to be regained here. Not saying Marco is a dishonorable person, but I think personally for Marco, there's some unfinished business that he has to settle. So really great chapter, really great chapter. I enjoyed it. But guys, give me your thoughts. How did you feel about it? What do you think about Marco being back? How do you scale Marco and King? Also, Kid and Apoo, what are your thoughts on that? Leave your thoughts below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Like and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.